ጤና ይስጥልኝ የተከበራችሁ ተመልካቾቻችን ይህ ሳምንታዊ የውጭ ግንኙነት ፕሮግራማችን ነው። በዛሬው ፕሮግራማችን ሁለት እንግዶች ይዤላችሁ ቀርብ ያለው አቶ አሌክሲዮ ሙሲንዲዮና አቶ ዳዊት ሞገስን እዚህ ስቱዲዮ ጋብዣቸዋለሁ። ከየት እንደሆኑ የሚያስተዋውቁን ይሆናል። ፕሮግራሙን እየመራው እስከ መጨረሻው ድረስ አብሬያችሁ ቆይታ የማደርገው ኤግላይት ናይት ነኝ። አብራችሁን ቆዩ። Okay, Mr. Alexio, thank you so much for coming here to do this interview with me. Can you please just introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. My name is Alexio Msindo. I'm the director of the ILO for the countries in the Horn of Africa. The headquarters based here in Ethiopia. And from Ethiopia, we are responsible for ILO activities in Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and Djibouti.
Mr. David, thank you so much for actually being here and doing this interview with me. Can you please introduce yourself as well?
Thank you for having me here. I am David Mogas from Ethiopian Employees Federation. I assumed the position of president, and I also work as Secretary General of Ethiopian Industry Employees Confederation, and on the region, just like in the Horn of Africa. I serve as Secretary General of Confederation of IGAD Employers.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you, for being here. We're just going to start from ILO in general, the International Labour Organization, and we're going to take off from there. Can you tell me a little bit about ILO, what it does, when it was formed?
The ILO stands for International Labour Organization. And the organization is made up of three main actors in the world of work. The government, in most cases represented by the Minister of Labour, the workers, and the employers. And we call that the tripartite arrangement. So basically the tripartite arrangement of the ILO, which has been established in 1919, now 101 years old, focuses basically on promoting social justice, productive and decent work. So basically that's what we are working with the tripartite in Ethiopia to promote productive and decent work.
So what was the original intention? Why was it formed in the first place?
The original intention in 1919 was basically around social justice. What we have 2020, we are still talking of social justice. And for that there has been progress over the years. So when ILO was formed in 1919, there were a lot of issues around workers' rights. Child labor was there, working hours were issues around wages. So those were some of the basic issues that started the founding fathers to come together and say, let's do something about it. So with that, they decided to form what we call international labor standards, which are universal and apply across every country. So for each of the areas that affect world of work, the ILO has an international labor standard. So that I'll take what we call the life cycle approach, which is standards apply before you're born through the maternity protection to make sure that mothers are protected and they can have healthy children. So at workplace, at maternity are there. As you get born, standards come in by having paternity protection so that the father can also have time to be with the child. As you grow up, we say children's place is at school and children are to play. And then we have standards around child labor. Children should not work and stay at school. We have then standards around skills, trying to ensure that what is taught at school is what the labor market needs. And when you get into the labor market, everything that you are experiencing from your working hours, getting a contract, getting a wage, social security, there is an international labor standard. And of course, at one point, we are all going to go 6 feet under. We are going to leave families. There is a standard on pensions through the ILO social protection system. We can get sick at any point in time. There is a standard on health, which gives us health insurance. So we take a life cycle approach through the international labor standards.
Okay, so you said ILO it's been like operating for over a century now.
Yes.
But you're the country director for the Horn of Africa. How long it's been since the Horn of Africa, countries in the Horn of Africa has been a member of the ILO?
Okay, Ethiopia is the first African country
it's
to
the
join
first.
the
Okay.
ILO. 1923. So that's the very first when Africa came on board. Then, of course, as other countries were gaining independence, they also became members of the ILO at different levels. But then that gives also me to talk a bit about the structure and how we are organized. So to set up these international labor standards, we then do have what we have as a governing body that then sort of directs us as secretariat on what they would like to do. As I say, organization is made of employers, workers, and government. So within the governing body, you have 56 members, 28 government, 14 workers, 14 employers. That makes us the only UN organization where decisions are made with employers having a vote, workers having a vote, and government having a vote in the decision making. So as we speak right now, out of the 14, I think Africa is around 6 or so government positions. Ethiopia is currently the coordinator of the ILO Africa group for the governing body. So basically influencing ILO decisions at the highest level.
So you're based here in Addis?
I'm based here in Addis, and our activities in Addis are guided through what we would call a decent work country program, which is basically taking what are the priorities for workers, priorities for government, and priority for employers, and putting that together. It's not an easy process. Let me just pick one subject into that. When you look at, for example, wages, the view from workers on what a good wage should be, a decent wage should be.
Minimum wage?
The view from the worker, the view from the employer are quite different. And part of how we then get the views together is through what we call social dialogue. Trying to get the employers understand the workers' view, workers understand the employers' view, so that you have sustainable business, so that workers have jobs. A minimum wage, minimum is just a minimum. We should get beyond the minimum so that the workers are productive, happy to proceed with their work. So trying to get that balance is what we bring through social dialogue in a tripartite, all three. We can pick issues around occupational health and safety. It's a challenge that we see, whether it's in construction, agriculture, the use of chemicals. So how do you get the employer and the worker to sit and decide how do you use the chemicals in such a way that you remain safe? So there are a lot of challenges that are there in the world of work. Maternity, which I started with, how many weeks are good enough? Employers have their perspective, workers have their perspective, and then we bring everyone together and come up with a national agreement on.
You're kind of the middle person.
No, the middle person normally comes to government. We provide advisory services.
You do the consulting, okay.
Yeah. But the government is generally the one that then coordinates workers and employers. Of course, the ultimate objective is national development. So that's where the government comes in to ensure that if wages are too high, business is closed, not good for. If wages are too low, workers are not committed, production is low. And the government has the interest on both workers and employers.
Okay, so what are some of the major projects under the ILO here in the Horn of Africa? Some of the main ones.
Okay, when we look at Ethiopia, one of our major projects is on the textile and garment sector, which basically would like to bring all the ILO standards to support so that there is productive and decent work and sustainable business in the sector. So you know the sector employs a lot of women, young women, majority. So what we try to bring in is ensure that occupational safety is there, so that we have basically zero accidents there. Ensure that the income that they get is enough. Ensure that the business sustainability element is there. So the textile and garment sector is one of our major projects that we do have. The second major projects that we also do have in the office is around employment, addressing the issues on youth employment, how to get opportunities for young people to get to the next level, entrepreneurship. Then we also have a major project on skills development, they're basically trying to reduce the gap between what the employers are asking and what the education institutions are supplying. So for that, we are working through what we call sector skills councils, bringing in everyone who has an interest in the skills of a sector, the employer, the learning institution, and then have an agreement on what do we need today, but also in the next 2 years, 5 years, and so on. We have other projects also in the areas of disability, for example. I've talked of social protection, so projects that covers all these areas of work.
So we've now covered just a general concept of the ILO. I want to talk a little bit about the Ethiopian Employers Federation. Can you tell me what that is and how it was formed as well?
Yeah. I'll take you back to the formation first. So Ethiopia was a member to ILO in 1923, 4 years after the establishment of ILO. And then locally here in Ethiopia, employers were having kind of small associations here and there. So finally, they came to a federation 66 years ago between the Hotelers Association and the garage, the Car Maintenance Garage Association. They formed the federation, and Ethiopian Employers Federation was born.
Just those two specific, the garage gym? Okay.
That's how it was started. So what was the aim then? The aim of those guys who established the federation were to buy linen for their hotel and spare parts for their garage from outside Ethiopia. So they were mostly concerned about supplies, how to bring it to Ethiopia. And then through the support of ILO and international organizations, they started building their capacity. So now the textile industries came into picture. They became our federation member. And then the Merchants Association, and so on and so forth. So now we're celebrating this year our 66th birthday. And now we do have, in every region, there is a federation, like in Diredawa, Harar, Gambella, Jimma, Mekelle, Addis Ababa, and Debre Birhan. So we have got 9 federations established. And those federations do have lots of members and associations underneath. So this is the whole structure of Ethiopian Employers Federation. And now, what we're doing right now, what's our agenda, is to be the loud voice of employers. What we're fighting for is to protect the right of employers.
Both private and government, right?
Mainly for private and developmental organizations. Like Ethiopian Airlines is in our board. Ethiopian Telecommunication is in our board. Ethiopian Postal. Those developmental organizations are our members, not the government ones, but mainly dominated by private organizations. So our main aim is protecting the right of employers without eroding the workers' rights and the government's rights also. So what we're aiming is, whenever there is a question or issues at the workplace or at the government level on policies, this federation is the one that jumps and asks for clarification and even giving suggestions of how to do things and so on and so forth on behalf of employers. And when it comes to the workers, whenever there is an issue between employer and the worker, we become a bridge between the employer and the worker and communicate to the workers' association and confederation, which is called SETU. So to resolve the problem out of the company's premises. So it will be, we are like mediators, one thing, we're advocates, and we're also defendants of the employers. And what we provide for our employers mainly is We give them capacity building and, of course, as I said, legal service, okay, and advocacy service. And whenever they need some information, be it from local or international organizations, and maybe from out of the Empire of Ethiopia, we communicate on behalf of them and fulfill their mission and their objectives. That's what we mainly do.
So how many members do you have so far?
So many, I can say maybe in thousands.
You've done a lot of advocacy works, capacity buildings. How has it been like progressing within these past 66 years?
So, Iglo, I'll give you two big examples. The first one is the labor law. You know, the labor law was amended, and there is a new labor law which is called 1156. 377 is changed now to 1156. So now, when that labor law was formulated, we were there to protect the rights of the employers. So usually what happens is, such type of laws, when it is formulated and rewritten, it is the employers, the workers, and the government, represented by Ministry of Labor, that sit down and negotiate about what should be changed and what should not be changed. So we were the one who were representing the employers on that issue. And it took, I believe, 6 years to come up to this point and to have the new labor law proclamation. So this is one thing that we have done the last 6 years. Now, with COVID in front of us, when the new protocol was developed, we were part of it. Ethiopian Employers Federation was part of it. And we were still then defending the rights of the employers. You see, the workers want to have a bigger share. The government always wants to have a bigger share. And also, it is us who will be defending for our bigger share of, the whole picture. So this is what we've been doing. And now, starting from next week, we'll be also coming back to the negotiation table to re-amend the COVID protocol that was formulated, that we've been using for the last 5 years.
Okay, I'm extending this question to both of you, and if you can answer this question. You said that Ethiopian Employers Federation, when it was formed, you said that ILO had contributed to the formation of the federation. How did it contribute?
People used to think like when it is international labor law, labor organization, people automatically think that this is a labor organization. Labor here is used as work, international work organization, okay? So because of that, they think it is not for employers, you see? So all that mindset has to be changed, and capacity was supposed to be built, and through all these things, they gave advice on how to establish it and how to come to a negotiation table as a tripartite, as a social partners, and so on and so forth. So this is what I got as a record in our office. And otherwise, we wouldn't have been part of it, and wouldn't have this organization celebrating its 66th birthday.
Okay, so what are some of the things that the two organizations do currently?
I think firstly, if I go back to his last point regarding what happened 66 years ago, I think that should be an opportunity for the Federation to put its history, document how the Federation grew up over the years, so that also the future generation would get to know how it was established, how it contributed to Ethiopia's development to where we are right now. But I think more specifically on what we do together, I think I'll start from the sub-region at IGAD level. With the Africa Free Trade, I think one of the things that will come is increased business between countries. And employers' federations would have a great role in terms of trying to ensure that businesses across countries they work in a competitive and fair manner. So one of the things that we are working with them as ILO is working with the Federation, get a strong voice of employers at IGAD level. That's one thing that concretely is important. And that also brings in other discussions around migrants moving, cross-border trade, and so on. So that's one specific thing at IGAD level. Then bringing in from IGAD to the country level, I would say we support them in three main ways. One, it's around knowledge development. You gave the example of the labor laws development. As ILO, what we'll do is provide the necessary research to the employers' organizations on what the different articles that are being proposed and what employers would like to bring on the table. So that's one practical in terms of knowledge. The other is the example used on COVID-19. It's quite something that everyone is trying to adjust to. And part of what we are doing with the employers is look at what have been the policies used everywhere across the world. What have been the best practice? Bring that knowledge to their disposal so that they can use it in Ethiopia. Second area that we work with them is around advocacy in terms of the issues for employers and advocacy on international labor standards. Third area is where we provide a service, where at times we come in and directly work with them on a particular issue that would be on the table. So those are the three main areas of support that we give to the Federation.
Okay. So how does this support work for you? He said that the ILO supports your federation in three ways, and that's knowledge development, I believe, and bringing best practices around the world in order to actually combat the COVID-19, and also advocacy on international labor laws. So how did it work out?
So let me take you from Ethiopia to the region. So when COVID came to Ethiopia, nobody knew what to do about their business. Our members, employers. Nobody could foresee what's going to happen after 1 month. So it was ILO that came to our rescue. Even the Federation office was closed because everybody was terrified. We don't know what to do, how even to protect ourselves and so on. And so it was ILO that came with the virtual meeting and started doing things and exchanging informations, what other federations are doing in some other part of the world. So the main thing is they gave us 7 huge documents. One thing is, the first thing that we've done is to assess our own capacity in the time of COVID. Like, as an employer, is my company capable of holding it like this for the coming 6 months? Am I using the right track of doing business as usual in the time of COVID, and so on and so forth? So they send us these documents to assess ourselves, how well prepared we are against the COVID challenge. So those documents plus 6 other documents, which gives us an insight of what others are doing in the period of COVID, was vividly cleared for us. And then we disseminated that information to our members, and then we translated it into Amharic, in fact. Yes. We translate into Amharic and we put it in CDs and flash disks, and we emailed it to members and even to the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, to Her Excellency. We even delivered 1 copy so that they will be also seeing what we're doing. So through that, members started checking themselves how prepared they are. Okay, there could be a financial distress, there could be a supply shortage, there could be a market problem, and so on and so forth. How do they solve those problems were vividly kept there. So that's one thing that we got as a support from ILO. What else? In the era of COVID-19, because we cannot have that much luxury of having face-to-face meeting like this, they introduced us to this platform of having a virtual meeting. So all our board meetings of the Federation and the Confederation and even the regions, we're using a Zoom technology that we are interacting with and so on. And this is how we do it. So that's one knowledge transfer. Although we got our own Zoom, but the guidance and the technique and the know-how came from ILO. And then, because of COVID now, we do have lots of time to sit and read and do some paperwork and so on and so forth. So for that, ILO came with an idea of giving us a course. And they gave us, in fact, a one-year scholarship. But they, as an IGAD Employers Confederation, we received 3 scholarships, okay, to attend and learn about ILO's, lots of like policy developments and so on and so forth. So these are the things that we've been doing and the support that we got as national level. At IGAD level, what happened is we were supposed to meet every month and discuss about our situation in the region and so on. So now, thanks to ILO, through these courses and the platform that we formed, now we did it virtually, but still the information being exchanged from one nation, from one African, East African nation to another one, from one IGAD member nation to another one, and so on and so forth. In fact, we just submitted maybe a week ago our 6-month progress report as IGAD Employers Confederation.
Can you tell me a little bit about the formation of the IGAD Employers Confederation? Just a little, you didn't give me a background information on that.
They gave us the platform again.
Okay.
They were the one who said, who told us and guided us to form a regional confederation. And I would like to thank Mr. Alexio for inviting us in one of the international conferences and to discuss about these things amongst IGAD members. And what happened was, I think it was in Nairobi, sometimes in March, the first meeting was held. And the ILO called us for migration policies and everything. But they gave us that platform to take aside our members and discuss and how to formulate and come together as a confederation in IGAD region. So with their blessing, we started this, and it took us something like 9 months. And last year, December 2019, after taking it, through hells and heavens, I can say, finally in December 2019, we formed it in Kenya, Nairobi again. So Ethiopia took the initiation of mobilizing and spearheading the project, and it was our federation and the Confederation, Ethiopian Industry Employers Confederation, that took the initiation, and we developed the bylaws, and we arranged for meetings, and then we were coordinating everything there. Then finally, last year, December 2019, we signed the agreement in front of ILO and IGAD Secretariat. So one thing that we did again here is to bring the headquarters of Confederation of IGAD Employers here in Addis Ababa. And the main reason is because ILO is here in Ethiopia, ECA AU and some other international organizations are here in Addis. So because of that, we brought it here in Addis so that we have close relationship with the ILO and with the rest of the organizations that are supporting our confederation. And that's how we started. And still we are grateful that ILO was supporting this whole idea.
It's a very young confederation, but would you like to add any more points on that?
I think the interest from ILO came to the issues around voice. As I said, the ILO is a structure. It's got government, employers, and workers. And one of the things that we realized is at IGAD level, the employers did not have a voice. So it means that also policies and decisions that are made, the employer's voice was missing. So when we realized that gap, and also noted that the workers have a Horn of Africa Federation, so the missing gap was employers to complete the tripartite dialogue. That is when we started discussing to see if they have an interest. And I think that's where the Ethiopian employers started discussing with employers from all the other IGAD countries to come up with an agreement as to have a constitution, what will be their focus, and what will be their... So it's a new organization, and for us is the initial, as we do with any other employers organization, it's around supporting their capacity building to establish what their focus should be, how they want to organize themselves. In that, we also look at supporting them, how they manage their finances, the corporate management in terms of the board. So we have training packages for each one of those, which our intention for 2020 was then to focus on that on the IGAD employers. Now, COVID slightly twisted, but it's not something that we've put aside. It's a question of how do we work within COVID to deliver on that. So it's when we look at the IGAD employers, if you look at East Africa employers, Southern Africa employers, and West Africa, it's still a young organization, which is good. They learn from the others and they have opportunity to think around new ideas. So for us as ILO is how do we help them move forward on their own.
Has it been practical? Did you, for example, the Zoom meetings and the virtual, is it being applicable to this specific?
Okay, has it been practical within the 5 months? One, I think what it will take is last week in Nairobi, there was a meeting of ministers of labor and the voice of employers, which I saw from his communication. He can talk more about it. I saw after that meeting, IGAD employers taking their space and giving a position on a discussion around ministers of labor within IGAD. So that's already something which, if these employers was not there, it could have been Ethiopia speaking on their own. But now they are speaking on behalf of many employers. So that's already one small practical step that is being taken. The fact that they've started communicating, Djibouti employers are talking to Ethiopian employers. That's already what we are looking at. It's something that was not there in terms of having a formal platform. So I would say there are some baby steps that we already have, and the idea is to concretize them moving forward.
Do you have anything to add on that?
No, just a few things. Yes, 3 days ago there was a big regional ministerial meeting, which is called the Nairobi process.
The Nairobi process.
The Nairobi process.
Okay.
Yes. And led by the Kenyan Minister of Labor. And so they were discussing about migration and harmonizing the migration in the Horn of Africa. And when you talk about migration, you have to have employers also to say something about that. Because if people migrate from South Sudan to Ethiopia, and if they want to get employed, if the government want to have them a chance of employment, we, the employers, have to be consulted. So if we are talking about the region, there should be also a representative of the region's employers to discuss and listen and, at least give suggestions to the ministerial level of meetings. So they announced it then that anybody can be a member as an observer, and they say the platform is open. So immediately, because of this confederation of IGAD employers, I called every one of them and I say, look guys, we have to have a seat in there. When the ministers are talking about work, labor and everything, we have to be represented there and hear about and voice our say.
The employers were excluded in that.
Yeah, because this is a very young organization and we don't have that much exposure in it, so nobody will call you. So we are working on our visibility. So immediately then, we called, while the meeting was going on, I called each other as the Secretary General, it's my responsibility. I called everybody and asked them for their consent. And they said, yes, we have to go in and be represented. Then right after that meeting, ministerial meeting, we formulated a letter and we dispatched to the organizers of the Nairobi process and also to ILO representation, to His Excellency Mr. Musundo, and the Ministry of Labor of Ethiopia, and so on and so forth. And now we're waiting for the positive response of granting a seat.
Any future projects that you, or any future plans that you have, what's your ultimate vision?
As EAF, yes, we want to have one strong confederation that will be representing the Ethiopian employers. That is the main thing. We have to be unified and also be a bigger and louder voice of employers. That's our main thing. What else we're thinking down the road is we want to serve the employers with what is being done in some other developed countries. What? So we can have a training center. We should have our own resources, mobilization schemes, okay? So that whenever an employer is having a challenge, be it financially, be it knowledge-wise or something like that, we should be the first one to approach and support them. So that's our general image and our vision for the future, for the coming 10 years.
What are the government agencies besides the Ministry of Labor involved in your process?
Well, as employers organization, we have lots of communication with the line ministries. See, when it comes to the policy making, we do have direct linkage with the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. If it comes to a matter that concerns health, we do have hospital owners, clinic owners, diagnostics owners, employers. So we'll be having a channel that will be discussing the issues with the Ministry of Health. So there is no minister or no government office that will not be interacting with us. The only thing is which level. So at the region level, there is our federation representative and the local office. So they will be engaged at a regional level. When it comes to a federal level, it is our federation and confederation that will be speaking on behalf of those at the region level. So that's how we coordinate and solve our problems with the government ministries and authorities.
I was mentioning that we turned 100 last year, and our theme was around the future of work. What would it look like? Looking at ILO's history and then trying to say the next 200 years and how do we shape the projects in. Then, of course, with the last few months changes, businesses were closed. People went out of work. Good thing is everybody's starting to come back now, return to work processes. Our focus in Ethiopia is how do we build back better? From where we were in the informal economy, in the formal economy. Now that we are coming back, we have learned a few things. How do we come back to that better? So where do we put our focus in building better? One is on social protection. One of the lessons that we've got in the last few months is that without unemployment benefits, without a social protection scheme. Person is working today, sending kids to school, gets unemployed as a result of COVID and moves from wherever they are down to the poverty level. So how do we get a social protection system that can help employers and that can help the workers? That's our focus that we put on. Looking into the future, employment. Jobs have been lost. In addition to the jobs that have been lost, we already had millions who were out of work looking for a job. And one of the things that COVID has shown us and the world in general is the importance of having decent jobs. So our future work we are looking at is how do we put that in. Third thing is around the whole industrial relations. What we have learned from COVID is workers and employers need to talk for a good industrial relations. And the product he was talking about basically was with dialogue, you come to an agreement as to whether how do you balance the workers' needs and the employers' needs in a situation of a challenge such as COVID. I would say we are trying to look into those areas, but as we do all that, we should remember the focus of SDGs. Don't leave anyone behind. Leave no one behind. And we are discussing with government, employers and workers issues around child labor. How do we address child labor in the country? We are discussing with government, workers and employers issues around harassment at the workplace. How do you ensure that as you move, this is addressed fully? So while we focus on the bigger development issues, we should also look at the disadvantaged groups and some of the difficult subjects to look at. And that would take us to the future of work.
So everything that's related with the future has got to do with kind of maintaining what COVID is going to leave us with.
No, COVID in one way has helped to get us move faster into the agenda around the future of work. So it has, whenever you have a challenge, it's how do you learn from the challenge moving forward. So the agenda on the future of work is still right there. How do we build back better?
Is there any message that you want to get across? Last message?
Well, due to COVID-19, the world will not be the same again. Doing business will be completely different post-COVID-19. So I would like to pass this information to all our employers, workers, and policymakers that post-COVID, we have to be very much working together and forecast the future and be prepared for even severe challenges.
Thank you so much, both of you, for actually coming here, taking your time and explaining what you guys are doing. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. እንግዲህ ተመልካቾቻችን ከእንግዶቼ ጋር ያደረኩት ቆይታ ይህንን ይመስል ነበረ። ብዙ መረጃዎችን ወደ እናንተ እንዳደረሷችሁ ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ። ፕሮግራሙን እየመራው እስካሁን ድረስ አብሬያችሁ ቆይታ ያደረኩት ኤግላይት ናይት ነበርኩኝ። ከቀሪ የናሁ ፕሮግራሞች ጋር አብራችሁ እንድትቆዩ እየጋበዝኩኝ ሳምንት በሌላ ፕሮግራም እስከምንገናኝ ሰናይ ሰንበት